Go. Hi, everybody. It's Linda Morrison here in the room with Louise Kirk on series two of The Art of Listening. This series has actually brought great joy and lots of people to me whom are on the road to using really clever conscious listening and conscious communication and the art of listening just to be better at what they do in their services and their products, their businesses, and all of the ways that they actually expand people across um, their worlds and the world. I'm really, really super happy to be extending this series, but also make it into a book as well. We've had everyone from chiropractors who are, I call them golf whisperers, but really incredible at golf, right through to psychologists, personal trainers, um, Reiki specialists, kinesiologists, and marketing experts, and those who are mentors and helpers of others across the world. So it's been really, really an amazing series. The art of listening really is, in a nutshell, I believe that a person gets to feel as if they are being heard when there is a conversation and a present person or those present listening to them. So, quite often, people having conversations are just waiting for the next person to speak, as opposed to truly listening to the person who's trying to communicate. And if we listen with open ears and curiosity, we can generally read so much more into what the person's actually saying. So, with the hard, fast marketing that's actually going on in the world at the moment, but also the way in which people consume information, but not necessarily are present with it anywhere. The Art of Listening interview series came about. So this is the second time I've interviewed Louise, so we're going to build out on some of the concepts we spoke about last time. But Louise, please tell people where in the world you're from and what it is you do, whom you help. So thank you so much for being here again.
Thank you, Linda, for inviting me again. So, I am based just outside Newcastle in Australia, although originally from the UK, and I support female leaders in their business to unlock their confidence to get visible and so they can get more clients.
Yeah, beautiful. So, starting out from that gorgeous title, where do you think people struggle with being visible?
For a lot of women, the struggle is not necessarily in the strategy because it's so easy to Google strategies, right? It's actually easy to figure out how to post somewhere and where you want to post if you're actually interested in that. But where a lot of people struggle is actually a lot of that self-doubt, that fear of judgment, that fear of actually really showing up. What are people going to think of me? What are my friends going to think of me? Are they going to think I'm a fraud? Because they've seen what I've gone through, especially if they're a coach. They have this idea that they have to show up as this amazing, trouble-free person, that they have no drama in their life, which, if you're human, you're going to have an
They're
element of
doing
drama and
anything.
trouble in
Yeah.
your life, right? But they're worried that people are going to think they're a fraud. Because ultimately, there's a part of them that obviously feels that way. So they're worried about the judgment of other people, or
Yeah.
they're getting stuck in this comparison mode of, oh my gosh, there's so many other people doing what I'm doing and they're way further ahead of me. Why do people want to work with me? And so there's a lot of fear about actually showing up and being visible because it just feels too scary.
Um, well, yes, it is scary. I remember my first I remember my first coach when I went online. Well, yeah, the main one that I've had, and she's a friend and a peer. Also, um, when I went online, I said to her, and I was going through a very difficult divorce at the time, and I had the kids, solo mummy, and had to be a breadwinner overnight, and all of the things. Um, and I remember saying to her, I feel as if so it's a time where you go through where you go, are any of my friends, or are they all his friends? You know, your couple's friends. It turns out they're all his friends, or they've just gone. non-comms, you know, not communicating. Anyway, but I did say to her, I feel like everyone's waiting to watch me fail. And she said, they are. And that was it. And I went, oh, okay. So there's the red hot truth. They are. They are. So and then it went on, just remember, a third of people don't like you and they don't know why. A third of people love you, probably same reason. They love you, but they don't know why. And then a third of people don't really care. So lower your expectations of thinking that everyone's going to like you. And I think it's a big thing for women and girls. And I don't think it's changed all that much over the years. I have a daughter who's nearly 25. And this likability factor. And if you're doing anything in life, you are going to be judged. And most of all, you're probably judging yourself as well, or you're possibly not going to be as judged harshly as you judge yourself. Can you speak into that a little bit? Because that was the best information that I ever got. And it was true. They were waiting to see me trip up by myself. Um, so it just showed that only I can be present with myself truly at the end of the day to get things forward. And I can have great mentors and coaches around me, but actually everyone's going to think what they want to think anyway.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of women struggle so much with this fear of what other people are thinking because it doesn't feel safe. Like we're so conditioned throughout history to be fully aware and fully present of how others perceive us. Because at a point in time, our lives would have been threatened depending on what other people think about us, right? And that does get carried down. But also, it's even present now, of course, in our society. If you look at, news or magazines, they're just desperate to pull down women. They judge them if they put on weight. We love the downfall of celebrities. Look how terrible their relationships are going. It's very publicly publicized. And then you're asking women to step out into this world of social media where it's very public and to not worry about these things, to not worry that people are going to want to tear them down because that's what we've been demonstrated, right? But of course, not everybody wants to. And but there will be people who will judge you. But the biggest thing really is like that judgment that you hold about yourself. And so I often say to my ladies, if they have a specific fear of a specific judgment, for example, like, oh, I don't look a particular way, or they're going to judge me for this, it's because you already hold that in yourself. Because if you are a woman and you identify as a woman, if someone came up and said to you, you're a man, you'd just laugh in their face, right? You'd like 100% know that's not true
Yeah.
because you don't doubt that about yourself. But if you already have doubts of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail, or I don't look good enough, that comment that says, oh my gosh, you look like this, or oh, you're going to fail, that's what hits home. That's what people are afraid of because they already hold that to be true about themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. Got it, got it, got it. Yes, it can be so simple and so complex at the same time. I do know that staying on your own page has always helped me over the years, but being fully immersed in the work and the projects that I've actually got going, and then concentrating on all the good stuff, all the results that we've actually got from people. Um, but this thing of judgment, and I know there's a really, really great statement, and it may actually be biblical in that, yeah, was it to judge yourself is to judge others, or to judge thy others is to judge yourself. And it's absolutely true. So I do notice that it really, really falls in the face for many people if they get caught in judging others. It means that they probably haven't got enough going on for them for their own little world, what they're doing, yeah, just get involved in your own stuff that you've got going on. And this has been interesting and probably a lesson to us all with this social media world, or if we've been in lockdowns or this whole conversation that's going on about our young people at the moment and their ability to be able to get all information at all times with devices and things like that, is that we're back really stuck with ourselves. So what are you doing? Yeah, to take yourself forward. Um, Really, judgment, I don't think goes away for self anyway. But I really find it hard to judge others. But I guess and I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I guess when I do, I think, is there something, this is what I've always done, is there something in what they're doing I really, really, really want? And I break it down. I know sometimes from someone who's divorced and not remarried yet, or at all. I look at, perfect wedding days and someone who's got married. And my sister's a celebrant, by the way. So she marries people and they've got perfect picture, wedding days and it's all awesome and all the things. I go, oh, isn't that good? Oh, that'd be really good. And I know what dress I'd choose or wouldn't and all the things. And then I go, is it something I really want? And then I break it down and go, yeah, no, not really, not right now. So, so I get really real with myself. So envy, jealousy, judgment is not a bad thing. It just shows where you're at, as long as you're honest with yourself.
Absolutely.
Can you speak into that a little bit, or how you might teach that a little bit? Because I just tell people to get real on stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of it is that awareness. And I think there'll always be an element of judgment for ourselves, but we can definitely shift the stories that we have. So you're not continually judging yourself for the same thing. So usually if we're judging ourselves for something in particular, and again, it's like really bringing that awareness as to, well, what am I judging myself for? Because that's where there's something, usually like a wound that needs to be healed and taken care of. Because you find like once you've gone into that and you've healed that wound, you're no longer judging yourself for that. Sure, you might find other things, but there's also this element of actually reconnecting and rebuilding that relationship with yourself. And quite often people go, oh, that sounds so woo-woo, like give yourself a hug. And really what it is actually just becoming like the person that you would want to be in a relationship with. So when we're constantly judging ourselves, when we're putting ourselves down, when we're comparing ourselves to others, when we're beating ourselves up, going like, we have to just keep pushing through, even though we're absolutely exhausted. If you were in a relationship with someone else who behaved that way, you would probably say you're in an abusive relationship and you'd want to leave, right?
Mm,
But yet we do that with ourselves quite often. And so a lot of it is actually building a relationship that you want to be in.
mm,
Because then when you start to have those elements of self-doubt, which will happen because it's a part of human nature, or you start that little judgment comes in, then your best friend steps in.
yeah. Yeah.
If that makes sense. And so now you're becoming your best friend. And as a part of that relationship, it is getting to know you. Like at the beginning of a relationship, you're so interested, so excited to get to know someone. What do they think? What are they feeling? What do they love doing? What are their ambitions in life? And again, I think we've been with ourselves so long and we've kind of ignored the fact that we are in a relationship with ourselves that
Mm,
we forget to invest that time and that energy to actually getting to know ourselves better and
mm.
to becoming aware of all those, stories and beliefs we have.
Yeah, 100%. So the times that my businesses have transcended um, anything and anything beyond the possibilities of I actually could work out that we would earn and do and all the things were the moments where I lent into seeing myself as something else, not from where I've come from, but to where I'm actually going to go. And that whole archetype has been quite incredible. And I'm not saying that I'm really good at doing it, turning it on and off and on and off and on and off, but the times that's actually happened. So where there's been space for that, and I'm an extremely hard worker at delivering on services and products that we actually put in place. Um, but where the gems have actually come from is really amazing things, like when I take a walk to the beach and I write notes on whatever paper I can find in the car, or I find it easier to write than I can do it in my phone, but it's sort of the something about actually writing it. But the alchemy has actually happened when I'm not at my desk or in my work mode, which other stuff happens then too, but it happens elsewhere. So this goes right back to me believing self-care, nature is always good, but self-care is the fundamental. And I know you've got a big practice of that, Louise, in your work and what you allow and encourage others to do as well. Can you talk about
Yes, absolutely. So with my clients, I take a very holistic point of view. Although women come to me for support to build that confidence in their business, quite often what you find is, yes, there can be elements of needing it in their business, but sometimes it's something outside of their business that's actually really holding them back. So that could be in their health, that could be in their relationships. And so they think that what they have to do is just keep doing more, like more and more. If I just do more in my business, learn more strategies, implement more things, get busier, then my business will explode. And of course, you do need to be taking action in your business, right? You can't just sit there and meditate all day and hope that something's going to happen. But at the same time, you're not giving yourself that pause. And, I talk about like this productivity cycle where like you have to, in that cycle of things, take that time for a pause. So, yes, you need that action that you are taking, but have that moment of pause so you can reflect. But also, it's very hard to get creative when you're stuck in this go, 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 must do this, must tick off the task list. Your kind of brain is so focused on doing the tasks that you're not able to think bigger picture. You're not able to get creative in that space and go, I wonder actually if this would work, or what about this? And so having that pause, whatever that looks like for different people, allows you to be more creative in your thinking. And
yeah,
then, of course, you can get back then into the productivity, knowing that actually maybe you have a new direction. Maybe you thought of a new idea. Maybe there's something that you were missing in your business that you've now gone, I've solved the problem.
yeah.
It's like you
Oh,
said, when something's going on in your life, usually when you solve it, you're in the shower or you've gone for a walk or
it's
you're
when you're lying
driving in the
in
car.
bed. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, you're writing in the sand or something. Yeah, yeah. No, totally. It actually happens that way for me a lot. But I'm not the only one. I know over years people have actually said that to me. That's why they've kept a very, very strong practice of health. Whether that be around, yeah, their trainer, their classes, their dance classes, their meeting their friends at the beach. I know down here, there's gorgeous women of all ages that jump in the cold water at 6:30 in the morning. But you can also go at 9:30. There's two options. They're very clever, these women. So yeah, all of that stuff, the practice of you is the key. And and then in my belief, getting someone as your ally in your corner to actually take you to where you want to go.
Oh, 100%. And I think having coaches and mentors, or even friends who are in that kind of same challenges in life or in that same kind of direction in life, will just get you so much further, so much quicker than just trying to do it all by yourself, watching YouTube videos or reading books or really sometimes, those low ticket offers, because those low ticket offers aren't designed to give you a full strategy or a full breakthrough or a full whatever, right? It's just giving you a teaser to get into something else. And I definitely at the beginning of my business journey was doing all those things. If I can do it all by myself, I'm an independent woman and I knew nothing about business. I had all of these money stories and all of these beliefs that held me back. And so, probably the first nearly year of my business, I made nothing. I was very busy in my business, but I wasn't making any progress because I wasn't leaning into getting any support in
Yeah,
any of those areas.
that's it. And I love that you say leaning in. And a big word for me this week, as in doing all of these interviews, a big word that's actually keeps coming up is surrender. So sometimes you know a lot of the stuff, but it's surrendering into it that you haven't quite allowed yet. So, and you're not meant to know all of the stuff all of the time either, but definitely that daily well-being fitness practice. I call it my, yeah, multi-million dollar morning ritual of health. I've called it all sorts of things on YouTube, and I always tell people exactly what I do. It is the same process of activity. However, if I've only got 25 minutes, I still do it. I kind of slam it in, but it's better if it's about an hour and a half. But at least it's done, and done is done. And then, yeah, sometimes you've got to catch a flight or if you've got to get on a call or whatever you got to do, but it's still there. It still happens. And it happens without perfection. I used to wear really expensive workout gear. Now, um, sometimes it's not. It might be half pajamas and half something else and half something else, but the work still gets done and it's okay. I'm not taking photos at that particular moment, but it doesn't matter. The point is that it actually gets done, and then that is a commitment to my million dollar business. Because what does a million dollar business or half a million dollar business deserve? It deserves a really, really good CEO. So that's really important, I think. Yeah, well, it's fundamental. Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, like that's what I take all of my clients through is transitioning from kind of like this employee mindset to this leader. Like how does a leader show up in their business? And that's not just what's in front of a camera. It's not just when you show up with your clients, right? It's what are you doing outside?
Right.
Because the leader is not what people see. It's everything that you're also doing yourself to build yourself up as that person. And a part of that too is like, how would I show up as a leader telling everyone to look at their life holistically and look after their health and, stop it ignoring the resistances in their relationships, and all of these things if I myself wasn't practicing those things.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And I know authenticity is a big word that's bandied around everywhere. It's almost overused, but you're absolutely completely right. How you do one thing is how you do pretty much everything. And it doesn't mean that we have to be perfect at all of it. Like I say, I'm not perfectly dressed anymore. I used to be. My outfits used to cost $2,500. I couldn't believe it. Like, whatever, layers of beautiful outfit, gorgeous shoes that cost $500 and all the things. That was just for the gym. But I've let that calm a little bit, but the practice is still there, which is the whole point. So, um, yeah, so raising standards, but then letting go of other perfectionisms has actually been, or judgments of self and others has yeah definitely been a superpower in my art of listening anyway and it sounds like yours as well, but you're absolutely right to encourage people. It's like too much work um, can have people spin their wheels, and my way of relaxing might be different to somebody else's. So I know recently my sister's taken up doing puzzles. I don't know if I'm going to do that, but that's okay for her. You know what I mean? Like if she gains something out of that, that's awesome. She might, I've got knitting going on, but I only do 2 lines. But it makes me mindful of knitting. Right now, I'm sitting and I'm knitting. That's what I'm doing. That's really important as well. So um, these little activities are really important, or hobbies, or whatever you want to call them, are really important as well. Do you find that a lot of women don't even have them, or they've forgotten that they're a tool, even?
I think they go through cycles. So what I find is especially in that kind of newer stage of business, because let's face it, that first like 0 to 10K is like the hardest part of the journey because most of my clients are coaches or they've started some kind of new business, but they're typically in that coaching healing space.
Yeah.
And so they already have all these amazing practices that they have in place as they're training to become their coach or the healer or whatever. And then they get to the point where they now realize they actually have to learn about how to do business. And quite often, like many of us, and myself included, I'm like, woohoo, I'm a coach. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to like help so many people. And you like don't know how to get these people to come into your world so you can help them, right? People literally go to university and study this stuff, and yet you kind of expect yourself to just like, boom, it's done. And so what I tend to find out is that when women are then stepping out of this space of purpose,
Yeah.
where they're like, I'm so connected to what I want to do and how I want to serve in the world, then all of a sudden to this business space where actually the focus then needs to shift into not just learning all these skills, but actually making money. And I found a lot of coaches and healers, because they're so purpose driven, they have this detachment to money. And they have a lot of this kind of relationship stories around money or money blocks that people like to talk about,
Mm.
which then actually also stops them from that building that business side of things.
Mm.
And then they get kind of so stuck in their head of the doing, because they all of a sudden realize it's not so simple just to train as a coach or a healer, stick up a website, and people will just come to you. You know,
Yeah.
they might get one or two like referrals at the beginning, but they soon dry out because word of mouth by itself isn't usually just enough, right? You need to be out there actively working,
Yeah.
marketing yourself, bringing new leads. And so then they get stuck in that mentality, as well as they've also been told to do this very masculine way of doing things where it's like, go, 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 all in, sleep in your office, sacrifice everything, you know? And so all of a sudden they enter that world and that's what they start doing. They either believe I have to sacrifice everything, and so they start sacrificing everything, which usually starts with themselves, which is their health. You know, all those beautiful practices they had before start getting thrown to the wayside. Then
Yeah.
it might end up being their relationships, their social life, or they kind of go, I have to sacrifice everything. That's too much. So they hold themselves back
Mm.
because they're fearful of what they might lose.
Mm.
But they're still busy. They're busy in their business and they're getting frustrated and they're getting stressed out and they're getting overwhelmed because they can see their vision and their purpose, but then they're kind of being dragged to this other world where they actually have to do something about it now. This business side that they don't really necessarily want to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
they
Yeah.
kind of go into this cycle of like
Mm.
overwhelm and starting to cut away things where actually then harder to them to go back to taking care of themselves,
Mm.
which is so important for the longevity of
Yes.
their business.
Yeah, it's fundamental. And also, as you say, longevity. Apparently, us girls are going to be here for a very long time, especially if we're healthy. So, so it's always going to be a thing. And that's why, yeah, that's why I do joke. My best friends aren't even born yet, because I'm going to live forever. But you're absolutely right. So, I've always been in a hurry, and I'm not good at that at all, actually slowing down. Um, and but creating hobbies or something we do with no end in sight or no outcome is really super important. Adult play, there's not much that actually happens in that space for women, I find. So we can talk about it more. No, maybe next time we talk about it, but it is a thing. And I know as my kids have got, more independent and all the things, I'm like, I should have a hobby. Like, I don't know what to do. And I went back to golf again. That was already cool and whatever. But also, Louise, I had nowhere to be. So the ladies' groups, they're all in their 70s. And then they met up with their husbands after I didn't have one and I was 50 and they didn't want me there anyway. Like I just didn't fit in to even the golf clubs or things. It was really strange. Anyway, I'm sure there's a day that you can do stuff for some golf clubs where, it might be different. But the point was, I'm like, it's hard to get something that you're going to do um, where there's there's no outcome. So I've got my gym at home. I can do, I go to gym classes and yoga and I can do all, all the things. But actually, what about something that's actually going to take you into your 90s? Maybe yoga can, that's absolutely fine or whatever. However, it's it's really there's not much actually there for women to keep going with stuff because exercise is also my business, ageless goddess, ageless business, all the things. So um, it's an interesting thing because the whole thing about a hobby is that it doesn't necessarily, like adult play, it doesn't necessarily have an outcome at the end of it. It's just something you do, like kids play, you know?
Absolutely.
We're going to play mums and dads, or we're going to play, I don't know, British Bulldogs, or whatever the things are. It doesn't really have an outcome in effect, but adults need that too. And a lot of the time, women don't. That's what I find anyway. They've got work, they've got their parenting, they've got their relationships, so they've got their family, they've got their obligations, they've got their businesses, they've got all the seriousness in and around that, making money. And then you go, what else do you do? I go to the gym. Why? Because I'm trying to lose weight. So, what about a dance class? What about something just for fun as well? But often they don't. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you kind of like, I think it also ties into this kind of feel like you have to always be productive. And especially for women who are very driven, this is what it is, right? So, like you said, what else do you do? Well, I go to the gym to lose weight, right? Because they're doing it not for necessarily for fun. They might, enjoy it sometimes, but
Yeah.
let's face it, when we go consistently, the days we still show up, but we don't want to do it. We're doing it because
Yeah.
great health reasons or whatever. Again, we're ticking a box to say we've accomplished this as opposed to just for fun. I would say there are lots of things out there for women, but it's about women to go, what do I want to do? And to
Yeah.
experiment. And that can change throughout your life. Like for me, I do aerials. I do it several times a week. I throw myself upside down. There is no outcome. There is no outcome in terms of I'm not aiming to become a
Right.
professional aerialist,
Okay, so just for the listeners,
Yeah.
aerial is this just um,
Yeah.
if you think about something, if you've gone to Cirque du Soleil and someone in a sheet literally goes upside down and does some tricks, that kind of thing. Now you can explain it.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I love aerial silks. So yes, it's essentially just this
Yes,
piece of material hanging from the ceiling. You do ridiculous things with your body, but it's fantastic for your mind because you're putting yourself into
fully
all
present.
these different scenarios
Yeah,
as well of like
yeah.
having to remember raps and sequences. It's great for my physical strength. It's great for overcoming fear, that's for sure, to pushing yourself. But ultimately, it's just fun. I go, I have a good group of women. Occasionally, I'll enter into a competition just because it pushes me to work harder rather than the outcome of a competition. Um, but it's just for fun. And there are things out there, but I think it's that shift in mindset first for women to go, well, what do I actually want? What will I actually enjoy doing? And also stepping out of this idea of what they think they have to be or do to be this good woman or this good wife or this good mother. And I can speak from experience from, years ago when I became a mother, I was trying to just tick all the boxes to be what I thought was a
Yeah.
good mother and a good wife and ultimately this good woman. And that did not allow time for me to go and play, for me just to go and do something, that had no contribution to anyone but me. And so I think it's so important for women to find that kind of space, whatever that is for them, right? It might not be hanging upside down.
And it
It
might
could
take a
be,
little while as well. Like
yeah.
find a little bit of
And the
something.
whole idea of play, my kids, they get bored. If they're doing the same thing over and over again, they love doing new things,
Yeah,
exploring new places, right? And so kind of stepping back into that kind of childhood way of viewing things of like, what do I just feel like doing?
yeah,
And blocking it out in the calendar. That's what's key. Because again, as women, we tend to put ourselves last. So if you go, oh, I'll just fit it in this week, but then someone asks for your time, or there's something that needs to be done in your business, or your house is a mess, then they tend to focus on getting all those things done or
Yeah.
prioritizing everyone else as opposed to going, I've blocked out Saturday morning for me. Someone else is taking the kids if you've got kids or whatever it is, and just going and doing that, whatever that is. And it could be something different every week. It doesn't really matter. Like you said, that's not the goal to be great at something, or unless you want to, of course, there's a great sense of achievement. But, it's just for fun, just
Sure,
for
yeah,
fun.
100% your space and time. Thank you so much for actually saying that, reiterating it. It's certainly something that was not taught to me, and I've had to learn how to do it. I'm still learning, to be honest, because also the things that you might have liked doing when you were 20 before kids, it might be different, after.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I used to like going shopping. I think it's the worst idea ever now, you know. So, and long lunches, now go for 50 minutes. But I used to spend hours in the city and we'd kind of do some beautiful things in Melbourne and with friends when we had all the time in the world. And yeah, so that, things are different. Stuff's different, things are different, and that's all okay. But yeah, finding that space and that zen, and also get used to actually sometimes doing nothing at all. So often I will have to tell myself, what are you doing? You've got some stuff to do, or you're resting your mind. That's what you're doing. That is enough. You're resting your mind right now. So I'll try to listen to music, or I'm a little bit of a geek around history. So I'll listen to your British originally, David Skarkey on history. Like it just, because it's like, one, I can't do anything about it. It was 500 years ago. Two, there's stuff that I don't know we weren't taught, or there's a new perspective, but also um, I don't need to have to know about any of it. So I can just fall asleep or I can just drift off. Whereas I get, you know, if I listen to exercise music or relaxation music, it makes me go back into when we own gyms and chiropractic offices and stuff like that. So it's weird, but yeah. So I've just learned that. It took me a long time just to learn that. So now I'm a history geek, apparently. Hopefully, some of it's seeping in there. So, um, but what am I doing? I'm resting my mind. I'm resting my mind, and that's a job in itself. And also something that a lot of people just do not do. Louise, it's been so incredible. I really thank you for being here with us on the Art of Listening. I hope that our project will continue with our book as it comes in the next few months. But what's the best way for people to get in touch with you? And of course, we'll have the show notes below as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you will find me on Facebook, Louise Kirk. I also have a website, louisekirk.com.au.
Thanks so much, Louise. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we go?
Just thank you so much for having me here and for listening and for everyone out there actually listening.
Thanks so much.